So, hello there. This is the Surviving NTHE channel's little mini show called the John and
Terry show.
the John and Terry Show. And I'm John Cossham, and you're
I am Terry O'Shay.
nice one, Terry. Nice to chat to you on this. And we're going to do a series where we are looking at abrupt climate change. Is that right?
It is, and all of the many facets that can be lumped in with that.
Okay. Now, what you're doing this because you're interested in abrupt climate change, and you're learning, aren't you? You're learning all about it.
Yeah, I like to think that I have a decent basic knowledge, but I'm by no means an expert in any of the different facets.
And you've asked me to do it because, well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on climate change, but I am a communicator about climate change. And I've been interested in green issues since the 1980s, and I live a very low carbon lifestyle. And I study climate change quite a lot. So I do a lot of reading, and it's a subject I'm interested in. So really, I'm happy to talk about any aspect of climate change. And if I don't know something, I'll say. And if I'm going to talk ballpark figures, I'll say this is roughly something. But yeah, so maybe if you want to ask me a question, then you can do. You can start asking me questions. I hope I know the answers.
Great. I think I'll start. I am curious about you, really. Why don't you tell me and the audience, because I don't know you very well, tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of, I know you're famous for something because you have a unique nickname. So why don't you help me and help the audience understand what that is?
Okay, well, I'm really into composting, and composting is the biological decomposition of plant and animal matter, often referred to as wastes, and the material is degraded back into soil. That's the rough thing, and people can compost very easily. They can manage a pile of waste materials so that it turns back into soil. And if they don't, those wastes might go to landfill, where they become anaerobic and emit methane, which is a greenhouse gas. Or they might go to an incinerator, where they are rapidly turned back into carbon dioxide. Whereas if they're composted, they are the nutrients are added back to the soil, and that helps plants grow really, really well. So I'm on Facebook. I'm John Compost Cossham. Lots of people call me Compost John, and I'm a pretty well-known composter in the UK. There are not very many people who are compost experts. I know of 3, and I'm one of them. So I'm sure there are more, but I know 3 people who are widely recognised at being experts. So yes, I'm Compost John, and if you get me started on compost, I will talk and talk and talk, because I really love it. I did my dissertation on composting, local authority composting, back in the 90s when I did a degree, and then in 2004 I started an organisation called York Rotters, which was a master composter scheme where people were trained up to become master composters, and that meant that they could teach their friends and relatives, their community, how to reduce this area of waste and how to add these materials back into the environment, which is obviously a very good thing.
Yeah, excellent. You were telling me a little bit about something that you just finished doing. You went to some kind of an event, and the
Yeah.
practical knowledge of composting um, there's a monetary value to it, apparently.
Well, the event I've just come back from is a festival called the Green Gathering, and this is a festival of about 4,000 people camping in a field for 4 or 5 days, and there are workshops and speakers and entertainment, music, and of course everybody has to eat. So there's cafes. People sometimes cook in their tents. There's takeaway food, and there's quite a lot of waste food. Now that could be driven off site in a big diesel vehicle, or it could be, you know, it could be wasted. But what actually happens is it's collected on tricycles and in a wheelbarrow, and some of the more far-flung stuff came to be in the back of a car. And we have bags all dotted around the site where people can tip their food waste, and the cafes have these woven bags as well. And I received several thousand kilos of food waste, and I made it into 2 large compost heaps. So the way I do it is I layer woody branches and logs and sticks to make an air layer, and then on top of that I put cardboard, and on top of that I put boxes of food slops, and then I make another woody layer with branches crisscrossing to allow the air to get in, with a layer of cardboard on top, and then boxes of food slops on top. So it's like a lasagna, and the air allows the bacteria and fungi to degrade the material and to rot it down. It allows insects and other organisms to get in there, which is what we want. And after a few weeks, the material will have degraded into a young compost. The sticks and the cardboard will rot more slowly, and after about a year, there will just be a pile of very, very rich soil where that was, with some of the sticks and branches not rotted down.
So that leads me to my next question. The venue where this festival was being held must have been able to accommodate that.
Yes, it's a very interesting venue. It's a little town in South Wales called Chepstow, right next to the River Wye, and Chepstow has a quite famous race course, and at the back of the race course there's a ruined stately home, and I think it's called Peacefield House, and the parkland around it is Peacefield Park, and that's where the festival is held. And I think the land is owned by the racecourse, but it's land that the public can walk around on, and they can go and exercise their dogs or fly a kite or just be in nature. It's rolling hills with grass and trees and areas of woodland, and there's the ruined buildings. And so we use an area where there's a ruined building, and I built the compost heap in there. In fact, I built 2 compost heaps this time, because I also took care of about 4 or 5 cubic meters of paper plates and cups, compostable cups, and food waste. And what I did is I built the second one with the pee bales. So because it's a green festival, people pee and poo in compost toilets, and there are hay bales for people to pee on, and the hay bales, straw bales, sorry, they come to the composting area, and we use those as a surround for a second heap. And I took lots of photos, and I haven't uploaded them yet to social media, but I will be doing. So if anybody's watching this and wants to see that, then I have a page on Facebook called Compost John John Cossham, and that's my page for my green activities. It's not my only page, but it's the one where I'm going to upload these photos. So yes, I'm looking forward to doing that.
You know, in the future with this channel, might we add a section for gardening and composting, maybe different gardening techniques? I have now a section on how to grow food in your basement, indoors. That's for the absolute worst case scenario. Maybe the outdoors is irradiated, or global warming has taken place so badly that, you know, the sun is damaging to plants. But there's going to be a time before any of that is even a reality that we have to live before we die, right? That's why the channel is called Surviving Near-Term Human Extinction. So before we go extinct, we have to live. And I think that would be cool if we could put up, you know, we could put together some videos on gardening techniques, especially where composting is concerned.
Yeah, I think that just getting back to your channel and the kind of ethos behind that, I think it's very common for people to have a kind of a survival instinct. We naturally pull ourselves out of the way of danger, and we have a very strong survival instinct. And so as the shit starts to hit the fan, I think people will be trying to survive for as long as possible. I think that some people will just go, I'm going to give up and shoot themselves or commit suicide or some other approach to dealing with this collapse of civilization and unfolding calamity around us. But I would say the majority of people are going to try and live for as long as possible.
I would imagine. Yep. I know that's where I stand. You know, the preservation of the species, so to speak. We have to be reasonable about our expectations. But like I said before, I mean, and this is how people have asked me, well, that's kind of a silly title for a YouTube channel of that nature. Surviving extinction. One doesn't survive extinction. Okay, that I can understand. That's true. However, unless a cataclysm is global and instant, things that are in our future, on the horizon, are things that take place in stages, you know, small stages. And so we have to live through these stages now.
There are two ways of looking at extinction, and human extinction could be that the Homo sapiens species comes to an end and the genus Homo ends, and that would be the extinction that I think most people in the NTHE movement, if there is such a thing, are thinking of. They think we are not going to survive the extent of climate change and what it's going to do to larger animals. There is another way of looking at it, which maybe this is a little bit of hopium, but this is what I like to think, is that Homo sapiens there will be a reduction in numbers, and will drop down to some kind of bottleneck in population numbers. And then should some human beings survive that, it could be that they would evolve into a new human species, which I'm going to name Homo sensibilis. We're currently Homo sapiens, which is man the wise, which is so inappropriate. So I believe, and I like the idea of a new species rising from the devastation of Homo sapiens, which it's doing to itself, being called Homo sensibilis, and these
I like it.
and this would live in harmony with other organisms. I can't picture what a post climate change Earth will be like. I'm not that visionary, but I do like the idea of our genes surviving and us evolving into a new species. That would still mean human extinction of Homo sapiens. That would still mean a human extinction, Homo sapiens extinction, because we would come down to a bottleneck of just maybe a few thousand individuals, maybe a few 100,000, I don't know. And then out of that, a new species would grow. I'm not sure of the timescales. I'm not a predictor. I'm not somebody that says, "Oh, by 2028 we're all going to be gone," or
I don't think
21.
that's hopium. You said that it was a bit of hopium. You know what I see that as? I see that as just a reasonable other way to see things. Don't you think it's unreasonable to just kind of latch on to a certain thing when we really have no clue? This is the first time that this species has ever gone through this.
Yeah.
But I like the idea. I really do. I'm not going to be one of those bottlenecked people, most likely. I'm too old anyway.
Me too.
You know.
We're both of a
I'm
similar
gonna
age,
leave
aren't
that
we?
to
So,
the younger generation.
yeah.
But I do. I like that. So your idea, and perhaps one that I have embraced, the going away of the species of man as we know him today. We can kind of get together and meld that. There's no need to argue, really, for anyone that's listening. You can come up with your own ideas on what your idea of how this is all going to play out.
And of course, plenty of people will think, will truly believe that we're going to find a way through this, that there'll be some technological advance or some mass change of consciousness that will allow us to come back from the brink. And this is a very, very common thought amongst the green movement, who are all very fixated on things like renewable energy and permaculture and spiritual paths. And I meet this a lot in the community that I'm part of, the green community.
Yeah.
I also do meet people in the green community who are pretty sure that we're heading towards a really, really tough time.
And for those people who are holding on to the hope that things will turn around in time, that's okay, and I'm okay with that too. What I think would be foolish on anyone's part is to attach yourself so strongly to one idea at the expense of preparing yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, even, dare I say it, even materially, because we can still use that it still has value. Personally, I'm looking forward to a time when perhaps we don't have a monetary system, but hey, we won't go there right now. But it can be used right now to a person's benefit. And then, of course, you have the spiritual aspect as well. And so one thing about this channel is that it doesn't aspire to give any kind of spiritual guidance, where there is spiritual material, such as in the music section or in the mental health section. That is just my effort to, as a cafeteria puts out many things that go with the tastes of many different kinds of people.
Yeah.
That is what I'm trying to do as well. And be it as balanced as possible, because that's where I think the real value in preparing is to be as balanced as possible.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like balance. And I think in this series of talks, what we can do is we can explore the science and the evidence so that people can perhaps understand why there are people out there who are banging on about extinction and who are
Sure.
absolutely convinced that we are heading towards that. And for me, it's a very compelling evidence. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that we're going to be hitting a civilization crash sometime pretty soon, and then after that, who knows? But not good for people who like things to run the same old. You know, things are going to change
Right.
more rapidly than most people
Obviously,
imagine.
obviously for me, one can see that this must have been important enough, that I must at least believe it enough to put forth the effort. And maybe I can just talk about the channel a little bit at this point, since we're kind
Yeah.
of doing an intro. It goes back to when I learned about abrupt climate change. I heard the words global warming. I watched the Al Gore Inconvenient Truth. That probably was the very first time that I embraced the idea that it could be possible.
Yeah.
But I ran across the video quite by accident on YouTube, and the audience needs to understand I'm not a YouTuber, and yet I have a YouTube channel. But I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not technically savvy with computers or anything like that, which this is like so out of my comfort zone. I'm not a Facebook person. I've never put on any food items that I've eaten or pictures of the events that I have gone to. I actually closed down a personal Facebook account because it got clogged, and I didn't understand that you could actually unfollow people. So it's important, I think, for people to understand that, and to be patient with me, because when things don't seem a little polished, well, understand it's coming from a person who really doesn't know a whole lot about the whole world of Facebook and YouTube and whatnot.
Yeah.
So back to the story. I saw quite by accident now, I saw a video by Dr. Guy McPherson, and it was the one where he's, I think, in New Zealand, and he is being talked to kind of on a news show. And it was his information coupled with, and I have to say, maybe 50-50, coupled with the reaction of the guy.
Yes.
And then after that was a mind, I don't want to say that word. Anyway, it was mind-blowing. And then the next video that I saw, almost the very next one, accidentally, was the one of Natalia Shakova, and she is giving some kind of an interview, and her very, very visceral reaction to some comments coming over her shoulder from a colleague. Wow. I mean, it's the information true, but because I'm somewhat of an empathic kind of a person and kind of a sensitive person, when I see people's reactions to things, it just kind of even makes it that much more powerful to me. So then fast forward 4 months of searching YouTube, searching the internet for articles, and reading for 4 months every day. My husband thought I was going out of my mind, but I had to find out what the truth was, because my bullshit meter, it wasn't going off, because, like I said, the Guy McPherson and the Natalia Shakova videos were pretty spot on and pretty authentic.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that, but I still needed to do my due diligence, and so here I'm doing this research, and what I found was it wasn't easy. I came across lots and lots of denier material, lots and lots of articles that were super, super conservative scientific stuff. And then the smattering of more doom and gloom. So it was just all over the board. And I asked myself, I tried to share it. And that really brought the need home to me. That in order to share it, this loved one of mine would have to sit for 4 months and watch these videos. So I thought, there's got to be a better way. So I started out with making a little brochure, kind of on Windows Publisher, a little trifold thing. And then I thought, you know what? Why don't I just try to do a YouTube thing, and I'll just find all these really good videos, put them on one spot, and then advertise it on Facebook, or somebody says, I got this family member that's not really grabbing a hold, then how nice. I'll be able to just kind of say, hey, here's a YouTube channel where you don't have to look for 4 months. You can just go to this one place. And so that's basically my answer to how can I serve my fellow man in this time of great need. Blah, blah, blah.
It's not blah blah blah. That's really good. That's it's nice to hear how you arrived at where you are, and I'm looking forward to exploring some of these subjects with you, and enabling people to learn who want to learn.
I'm so hoping that will be the case.
And I think it would be also quite good to have some kind of live discussion, which may include people who don't agree with what we're talking about.
Balance.
And that's quite good. I like being challenged.
Sure.
I'm a good scientist. I like to be challenged. So
I do want to be wrong. I very much desire to be wrong. And so if we
I know how you feel. Yeah.
If we have this show, and I'm envisioning live chat where people can answer, ask their questions live, and if our guest or yourself, or maybe even me, I can hardly imagine that, but maybe even me, knows the answer to that, or knows where to steer this person to get the answer, that's wonderful. But if that person is another scientist that it wants to prove us wrong and can, holy shit, that would be great. I'm not against that.
Let's see where it goes. I think we're aiming to keep the videos fairly short, keep them focused on one subject as far as we can, and not go off at too many tangents, and hopefully produce a nice little series that can be easily digested by people.
That is my desire.
That sounds good. Good. Well, I'm looking forward to chatting to you again. And what do you think? What do you think our first proper video ought to be about?
Well, I consider this our first proper video.
What do you think our second one ought to be about?
If it's okay with you, I'd like to publish this on the channel, and just put a note that it's an introductory.
Indeed. It's a chat between two people who've really only just met over the internet. We live a couple of thousand miles apart. We're probably never going to meet in real life, but that's all right. Yeah. So maybe we'll just leave it open as to what the next one's going to be about, and we'll between us we'll work out a series of perhaps 5 or 10 different subjects that we can cover over the next few weeks.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Really good. All right. Well, that's lovely. Thank you very much, Terry. And I think I'm going to say goodbye.
Okay.
Cheerio.